It feels like we're living in the middle of unprecedented times. Social isolation, quarantine, lockdown, curfews, and all of it related to the global pandemic of COVID-19. And I've certainly never seen anything like this in my life, and suddenly things that I took for granted, hugs, handshakes, trips to the store, gathering together with friends, those are now gone. And it leads me to wonder, as someone who wants to value what Jesus values and love my community well, what does it mean to follow Jesus in the age of COVID-19? Well, sometimes I think the best way to chart a path forward is to look backwards, to see how our grandmothers and our grandfathers in the faith took serious times seriously and responded in ways that were wise, compassionate, and kind. And that's what leads me today to Martin Luther. In 1527, the bubonic plague was ravaging Europe, and it had come to Wittenberg, the city where Martin Luther lived. Now, he was a professor at the university, and suddenly the university was closed. And many of his friends were fleeing the city and begging him to do the same. After all, he had a pregnant wife. On the other hand, there were people who were saying real Christians, true Christians that had real faith, aren't afraid of the bubonic plague, and there's no way that they would actually get it. That God would protect them and they should just go on living their lives as normally. And Martin Luther, in response to both of these, wrote these words: "I shall ask God mercifully to protect us. Then I shall fumigate, help purify the air, administer medicine, and take it. I shall avoid places and persons where my presence is not needed, in order not to become contaminated and thus perchance inflict and pollute others and so cause their death as a result of my negligence. If my neighbor needs me, however, I shall not avoid places or person, but will go freely, as stated above." So let's take some cues from Martin Luther. Let's take these serious times seriously. Let's wash our hands. Let's practice social distancing. Let's listen to what the experts have to say, not just because it's good for us individually, but for the good of our neighbor. But let's be ready. Should someone need us, let's go and serve. If we have resources, let's not hoard them out of fear, but let's be open-handed and generous. And if we need help, let's not be prideful, but let us be willing to receive the generosity of others. Friends, COVID-19 does not change our calling to follow Jesus in loving our community, but it does push us into some unknowns that could lead to opportunities to live sacrificially and counterculturally. In other words, to live like Jesus in our world. This is a time for us to be creative in the way that we love. So pray with me that God will make our path clear, that we would be nourished by the grace of Jesus Christ, and that we would follow after him.